All right. Yeah. So, like I said, so I'm going to take you through the course design in terms of what's the theme of each day. Now, if somewhere it says something like a infra architect, somewhere it says decision maker or project manager. See, because all of you are from the development team and varying experience levels. I'm sure everybody of you during the course of experience, either in the future or in the past or even now, wear various hats. Okay. So this broad theme which I mentioned here is like you can see the course and the various hats that you wear during the choice of, I mean, during this journey from monolith to microservices. Let's say in the beginning, all of you might be involved as a decision maker when organization says, even though primarily it might belong to, let's say, some architects, very senior architects, or some managers or some directors who will do some kind of research, or who will be involved in deciding whether the organization is going to go ahead with the microservices or not. So that's a very important phase. Okay. So in this day one, okay, today's day one. So we'll try to cover like you can say a revision, a review, or just take you through the various software architectures which you should know. I mean, I'm sure you will know, seeing your marks, and definitely you will also possibly learn some new points. We'll go to the monolithic architecture. Okay, why it's very important? Like I said, never agree that. I mean, this training should not just be that show you some infrastructure services, show you that microservices are running, and that's it. I want to go to microservices. So it's a complete like a professional. You should be able to make decisions, understand what's the why I need to go microservices. Okay, what are the pain in monolithic architecture, and also some introduction on what is SOA, what is serverless architectures, and what are the real needs and motivations for microservice architecture. What, why, okay, possibly when, and yeah, that kind of questions will be answered in the decision maker day one. Now, the same points continue on day two. Okay. Now, day one, you learned about this, you revised them, you understood what the needs and motivations. But day two, we start now that once we know this, let's start moving to microservices. Either, let's say we have decided we are going to move to microservices. Okay. And once we have decided how are we going to do that, what are the possibility patterns, techniques, what we need to identify. Okay. And day two will also cover you can say, the shortcomings and pain points of Microsoft's architecture by itself. Right at the beginning, I'm bringing that to you because by that time, you would have gone through, you can say, so many architectural types, revised them, understood them, related with your experience, and you can, by yourself now, start thinking that these are the possible pain points of MSA. And I'll present it to you. You can also share your thoughts. And case studies. Case studies means why people have either succeeded or failed with microservices. There are big names there. There are people who have done immensely well using microservices. The entire world is moving because obviously the percentage of success is very high. The need is very high. Okay. But at the same time, just make sure you know everything when you're getting here with microservices. At least keep the know-how. And when any challenges come or upfront, you handle the challenges rather than like learn from others' mistakes. That is something very important in microservices. Do not commit to anything when you are not sure, when you have some open-ended things. You learn from others' mistakes is a very key point there. So day three theme is the software and Java architect. Now first of all, we revised the various architectures. We understood what is microservices, and then we moved ahead in this decision maker life. We decided to move ahead. And also we know when we are moving ahead, these are the pain points. I'm okay with that, but I'm going to go with microservice architecture. How I'll mitigate those risks, I'll plan for it. And some case studies, how people succeeded or failed at a very, either in terms of links, because I'll not go through every case study, but some few links will be shared with you. And when you have time, go through them, but we'll cover a few things very briefly in those case studies. Day three, now I'm going to get ahead. I'm my organization. Okay, let's say I said that I'm going to, me being let's say in the hat of a Java architect or software architect, I'm going to go ahead and prototype the reference architecture. So now we bring in our Eclipse, our systems. We start understanding what is Spring Boot, what is Spring Cloud. REST, obviously, you know how we can use Spring Boot and REST. String data in terms of concepts and string security in terms of concepts. Swagger actuator. So these are the terms which you would have come across in Spring Boot very often. So how I'm going to go and implement them, and we can start doing some coding. Okay, start demonstrating on our local system. Okay. Yeah. Day four, we move to an infra architect. Here we are a Java architect. We talk about Spring, which is what many of you would have done. for so long. Here we talk of infra architect. So here we can talk of things like API gateway. We introduce the things, either they were applicable in the earlier architecture as well, or they are very new to the microservice architecture, okay? Or you can say the relevance of them has increased with the microservice coming into the picture. So that is the idea. Okay, so just one moment. Okay, so that's the idea. And all right, so day 4, we will talk about components, physical components such as API gateway, service discovery. We will talk about circuit breaker, config server, and messaging. Okay, so you might come across newer things like historics. You will talk about RabbitMQ. We might talk about design patterns like backend for front end. Why we should, I mean, when you are building an application in terms of, let's say, microservices, at the level where we are talking to the outside world, or outside world wants to talk to us. Sorry, what are the kind of design patterns that come into picture? Okay, and when you're using, when the services are there in my ecosystem, how will anybody know that these services exist? And then things like failure recovery, and how to make sure that there are concepts like rate limiting, there are concepts like exponential back off, back pressure. So how I'm going to do that using using the microservice architecture, how it's done. Okay, like I'm again reiterating, I've done it, told you 2 to 3 times. The bare basics, like in terms of you doing it by yourself, you will have some code on a system, and you can keep. I will also share the GitHub code with you. There's a reference implementation called Oblix. That's the name of the reference implementation. If you decide to purchase a book, you understand Oblix is the name of reference implementation from the book, and then that same, almost like you can say, the code is available in GitHub, and then you will also start building that code, and you will have the very, you can say, skeleton on your system for each of these concerns. And then you can also keep on building on it. I mean, when you have your free time, because you might have some learning time with you, and then you can go ahead and keep building on it. Okay, so that is the idea. On day 5, we move ahead. Okay, as the infra architect. Okay, here we have to talk of things like, again, we talk of REST. Okay, in terms of how are we going to do publish subscribe in terms of messaging, where we ended in the last session in messaging. We continue that. Okay, what are the concepts of service mesh, inter-service communication? Okay, what are the communication, whether we can communicate in terms of REST, whether we communicate in terms of gRPC. But gRPC I will be taking in conceptual. REST we'll take it through. We'll do the coding, hands-on coding. Publish subscribe will be hands-on coding. Service mesh concept. What is the meaning of load? I mean, load balance you know, but how in microservices the load balance will come into play? Okay, and things like declarative web service client. So usually web services, you will be kind of, you will invoke it through some code mechanisms. Okay, but how we can invoke it declaratively and then use it transparently with circuit breaker. So that is the day 5 dedicated to. Okay, and then we will move to a simple use case. Okay, like now by the time you're at the end of day 5, okay, at the end, from today, that is this is starting of day 1. By the end of day 5, you would have gone through the thoughts of software architectures, monolithic, microservices, serverless. What is the motivation to move to MSA? Why, as a decision maker, you took the decision to move? What are the pain points of decision that you took? Some case studies that there are failures also that exist, and then there are very great champion stories as well. And then you went through the Java J2E architecture in terms of, I mean, in terms of Java J2E aspects, in terms of Spring, Spring Boot, Spring Cloud, Swagger Actuator, and then you build infrastructural concerns, you understand microservice infrastructural concerns, and then you know the inter-services microservice communication. Okay, you know about how to write, I mean, in terms of communication or in terms of interacting, how to write web service, clients, web service client, declarative web service clients, and then you will also build a simple use case. That use case will be very simple. Okay, that during that time I'll bring in the order management perspective, but it'll be like because it's, you have to utilize this time to learn the concept, do it, and me being there to handhold some places. Okay, and hopefully whatever simple use case you build, you will keep on working on that as yourself. And then at the team level, obviously, because you will have the knowledge by then, you can now, I mean, you can talk about things that you want to do in your project. Okay, like you can relate to your project's problems in terms of your OMS system. Okay, so that is what is going to happen by the end of day 5. Okay, then once we move to the next week, okay, so let's just quickly